Welcome in, gang. Coach, super pumped to have you. So, there's a ton of stuff Coach wants to get into. So, we got to get straight into it and we're going to bounce around. But first, let's talk about football, right? So, obviously, Coach put like $5 or something like that on the Browns and the Titans, and it went the complete opposite way, right? It was either both of them going to win or both of them going to lose. Unfortunately, it was both of them losing, but the Browns could afford this loss because the Ravens and Steelers both blew it. See how we lost a game to the Bengals? We can make that up at the end of the season. We face them head to head. They're rolling with Flacco. We're not too nervous there, right? It's the other two teams winning. That was the major storyline. This gives an excuse for Stefanski to get fired. It was really hard to figure out how to get him out of there if they keep winning, unless somehow he just looks absolutely terrible. But it's just hard to justify that. But basically, if Stefanski doesn't get fired right now, we're probably in really big trouble, right? Like, what could it possibly take for him to get canned? I mean, they looked horrible today. Okay, so yeah, they lost, but didn't lose any ground on the Steelers or Ravens, which is ultimately what mattered because Coach told you we're not chasing the wild card, we're chasing the division still. It's our only way in, and we have to hope the Ravens and Steelers absolutely collapse. Well, the Ravens got stomped by the Bengals, and people in Pittsburgh, they're not too happy with their football teams right now. We'll say that now. As far as the Titans go, we knew Shador and Cam Ward were going to have the same record going into this week. It just sucks that it came both being a loss, right? So they can hype it up. The winner of that still gets to have the better record for the season, right, at that point, which is what would matter. They'll basically hype it up like it's the toilet bowl. It's like, have you ever seen a less exciting matchup of two top-tier quarterbacks or some stupid shit like that? Now, let's move on, kind of, right? Coach has a lot, like he said. Now let's talk about SMU, Jordan. So he was the 25th ranked player in Texas. Coach thinks that was some sort of gag. He was a transfer from TCU, who's their arch rival. SMU blew it against Cal, but Cal was without two key receivers, and they had just fired their head coach. That was, if Coach knew that one, Coach well enough to know he wouldn't have liked that at all. Like, oh no, this team's like mid to sucky. Just let it roll. Like, we don't want a big shake up, like a coaching change or something that could bite us. What do you know, right? So there you go, right there, Nick Rolovich. And they had just fired him 6 days ago. Right, so Eagles rookie Jihad Campbell, he got 0 snaps, right, and they fell apart against the run. So it's like they're trying to sell you this guy, which makes perfect sense to Coach because he thinks Campbell's going to be a big piece in the Detroit Lions playoff matchup. So that makes perfect sense. He gave 281 rushing yards. Frank Ragnow, Detroit Lion, failed his physical, won't return. I'm assuming he's like an offensive lineman or something because he's not on Coach's radar. I don't know how I missed him. Let's see here. Does it say? Grade 3 hamstring. Damn, that's like a bad tear. He's toast. Yeah, there's no way. God, talk about bouncing around. So hang with Coach here, okay? So Coach is hyping up Sixers Nuggets. But what if that guy, Coach still thought that one is like, it could marinate a couple more years. What if it's what Coach was talking about last year with Sixers Clippers? Okay, that shit would be weird as hell and wild. And there's a lot of stuff Coach found that has him thinking, like, first off, Tyronn Lue is the coach of the Clippers. So, you got the Iverson step over Lue. That's the Sixers' most iconic finals moment this millennium, right? Pretty much their only one. Right? So they could, get the Iverson versus Lue thing again. That seems suspicious. Kawhi hitting the 7-bounce game winner shot in Game 7 to knock the Embiid out and make him cry. Sitting right there. James Harden jumping ship from the Sixers. Sitting right there. And they got Bradley Beal, who the Sixers could have signed as a free agent. The Beal one doesn't seem nearly as, obvious, but the big one is look at who the Sixers got. Our third fiddle is Paul George, who bailed on the Clippers. There's just a little bit too much there for Coach not to think there's some fireworks, especially when you can have the Clippers versus a really sexy Lakers team with LeBron playing third fiddle to Reeves and Luka. Right, and Lucas seems like locked in on defense. They could definitely play the Lakers as the favorite and then put the other LA team over, the team that was never even supposed to be in LA. Basically, Donald Sterling, by the narrative, he went rogue and put another franchise in LA without the NBA's permission, right? He like wasn't supposed to go from San Diego, but he did it anyway. And let's see. And like they were talking about like the Clippers season's like already over, right? But we know like with the play-in tournament and stuff, right? There's pretty much no team eliminated till late in the season. They go on some crazy run, and there's like a bunch of whatever teams ahead of them that are all that scary. And then like so the Clippers and the Sixers, this another weird one. They're the two teams that basically gave the Thunder their championship last year. When you really look at it, so the Clippers with SGA, I mean, I don't have to convince you too hard there. But then the Sixers gave them a first-round pick in Al Horford for Danny Green. I mean, I don't hate the Al Horford one, even though he's not nearly the caliber player as Danny Green, just to free up the contract, right? But a first-rounder, right? Like, who did that end up becoming for OKC? I don't think they tell you in this article. But you know, coach just thinks there's a lot going on between those two teams. They're talking about Nick Foles for offensive coordinator. There you get your Brady Foles rematch. That's super hot, right? And we think Peterson would be on the Browns. Not that would be, they'd be going head to head, but it would still, like, they'd still be in the playoffs at the same time getting talked about, right? Their names are going to be in the same conversations. That's good enough for coach. Let's see. Oh, sorry, this is stupid. Oh, yeah, so, like, this is how you should have known something was up with, like, Brady and stuff from the get. Why did he get drafted to a team that signed their quarterback to a 10-year contract? Everybody should have known that contract was going to be bad. 10 years? Drew Bledsoe. Come on, right? I'm not saying Bledsoe wasn't, a great prospect for his time or whatever. 10 years? You're telling me you couldn't have got him to sign for 9? He was bucking at an 8-year deal. Like, nope. The Packers are giving me 9.5 years. You got to go the full 10, full send, or I'm not sticking with the Patriots. Like, complete horseshit. Right, so they're saying Sauce Gardner might have popped his Achilles. That'd be good. Weaken the Colts a little bit. Give them an excuse to not be a big threat this year. And even though, like, did they really need him? They were already doing good, right? So that just keeps them from, like basically you had this Colts team that was looking rock solid, and then you throw that on there, they could have been nasty. Now they're just back to rock solid, and that's tough, right? But it should be enough maybe to like still finish off the Colts, who knows, and win the division. I'm not too concerned about that race. Coach talked about Sting, right, with Jim Carrey. We're thinking gotta be the musician too, and look, his name's Gordon. And then Thomas, like Tom Brady. Was there something there? I don't care that much. This is interesting. Check this out.
Let me just tell you what I am gonna do. I'm gonna put on my boots. I'm gonna put on my tights. And then guess what I'm gonna do at Victory Road? I'm gonna kick the living crap out of you.
So as you see, that was Jim Carrey mashed up with Sting, who coach says they're the same. And there's 2 or 3 comments on there say, "Dan, they look the same," and the reply is, "and sound the same." Someone replied from a 4-year-old comment, right? So they're still not hip to this, but it is out there. If you wanted to know it, it's not, you don't just have to trust coach. There's other people trying to tell you. Detroit Lions Super Bowl window is officially closed. It's the funniest shit I've ever heard. Okay. Joker Sting, right? So Sting did the Joker. That's where coach saw Jim Carrey in him, was his Joker persona, right? So he does Joker. Well, Jim Carrey's the Riddler. And, that's Val Kilmer's one. Val Kilmer just died. Joseph Clifford Montana Jr., coach was talking about Cliff, right, with Heathcliff and Cliff from Cheers. We had Jimmy Cliff died. What do you know? The Niners are hosting the Super Bowl this year. You might want to keep an eye on Notre Dame. We're going to talk college football a little bit. Coach doesn't have, like, super good reasons for Notre Dame, but just like, they're right there last year. Could be some sort of Montana ritual. That's not the team I'm super invested in. I got a weird one for you. Of course, typical coach fashion, right? He's going to go weird. Now, what was going on there? Okay, right here. So, hold on. We got to go rid of this first. NCAF standings. ACC. Okay, so we're looking at Duke versus UVA for the conference championship. They're putting Duke there instead of Miami, Pittsburgh, SMU, Georgia Tech, when Duke has more losses than any of those teams, and you can't even point to the conference shit because they all have 2 losses. What bullshit system is in place that Duke can lose to fucking Tulane and 4 other teams, including 2 conference losses, and they get to play the team they just lost to 2 weeks ago by 3 scores in a rematch for the ACC championship, and they've only got a 7% chance to make the playoffs even if they win the championship? There's no way they're following through. I haven't seen any sort of hint. It doesn't seem like some sort of big backlash or whatever. But I'm just saying, if I'm in the ACC and we're supposed to be capitalist, blah, 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 I'm stepping in. This isn't even saying it's some SMU shit or whatever. Any of those other teams, too. Tech, Pitt, there's not much of an argument for it. But Miami does nothing to help Coach. And I promise you, if they put Miami in there instead of Duke, Coach won't say jack shit. So this isn't just sour grapes. I just don't understand how it's those fuckers. And they're only there because Belichick blew a trick play and then couldn't finish NC State the next week. How? 7-5, they're down there with Cal, Clemson, and NC State. I just don't see it. Nobody wants Duke UVA ACC championship. That can't be what they roll with. They gotta swap that. And Miami's the one right below them. So that's who I would pick personally. They have the best record. But if you're just trying to be greedy as the ACC, you probably feel pretty good about Miami. I would call the playoff committee's bluff and say, I dare you to not give them an at-large, right? It seems almost insane that they wouldn't get selected. So you could have one of the other 2 teams, SMU or Georgia Tech, I guess would be the next 2 picks, even though Pittsburgh, I would go Georgia Tech. Miami, Georgia Tech, then SMU. That's who Coach thinks deserves it. And then Duke, even after Pittsburgh. Duke has no business in this. So Coach isn't going to say any more than that. That's just how he feels. Okay, so back over to our slides. Right, James Madison, 39% chance. We're about to get somewhere fun. So Coach noticed that, this one's interesting. So Garrett's wearing a 25 on the inside of his wrist. Coach caught. At least I think that's what that is. Right, 25 for the year 2025. So I think he's going for 25 sacks. I think for sure he ends up with exactly 25, breaks the record by 2.5. Oh, 2.5. He breaks it by 2.5 sacks for 2025 with 25 sacks. That's exactly what they're doing. Okay, so we got that. Okay, and he'll beat TJ Watt out and a Giant who are tied. Right, so Lawrence Taylor and TJ Watt, that's just too perfect. Okay, here's our brownies going down sad, but they were sponsored by Little Caesars. There's something. Coach was thinking about lobotomy, bot, are we robots? Who knows? Coach doesn't want to go too off there. There's one more thing I wanted to point out. Let's look at the AAC. Okay, so they're saying the ACC might get snubbed for the AAC. Well, what do you know? The AAC had already caught Coach's attention because he saw that North Texas beat Temple 52-25. Okay, and I was like, that's really weird. North Texas is the Eagles. They're beating a Philly team. Of course, the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. And they're saying if North Texas wins and Duke wins, they're probably going to give North Texas the spot and just leave Duke out to dry. And a loss for UVA would end their season for sure. They're not getting a large bit after that. So I think you would just be looking at Miami from the ACC. And basically what Coach is getting at, So we have an 11-1 team here. North Texas from the same area-ish as SMU. So all the same stuff I said still applies. Like, why is Dallas sports so bad right now? Right? They could be the team. That's the sneaker. And not SMU. I don't know like hardly anything about this team. I'm just saying they've got to be crazy long shot odds. So coach is parlaying it with lines over Brown straight up, and it shouldn't be too much to max it out. I'm not even going to worry about a basketball parlay with it. So that's who I'm looking at in the AAC is North Texas. Then let's look at the rankings here. So Ohio State, Coach told you they were going to win last year, and I never really found a reason why they couldn't win again. Coach just doesn't care for it. Obviously, if you're defending champs, the odds aren't going to be that great. There's really no gain there. We already got all we wanted out of Ohio State. They don't owe us anything else. If they win again, I won't be too mad at it, but I don't care, right? So I just can't get on board with them, although the Bo Jackson thing is really interesting. Now, Indiana, that's a different story, especially being undefeated, one of only 2 undefeated teams. Coach said last year, Coach said Indiana might be stealing a championship, right? So they had a senator pop off and talk about it. So that Indiana team could be dirty, and that could be the SMU tribute. Okay, so Coach is looking real funny at Indiana. Texas A&M, Coach thinks they're not good until the Elks are good for it. And Coach found another Elks connection today, and I forgot it. Hopefully it'll come back to me later. Georgia, I just don't buy it. Texas Tech, Oregon, don't do shit for me. Ole Miss, they do have Kiffin. You got to at least think about it, right? But that's not who I'm hitching my wagon to. I'd rather have the 2-loss team with Oklahoma, who I've said all year I liked. Right there, one of my top 3 the whole time. They're pretty much the only ones still standing after Georgia Tech and SMU has officially bit the dust, seemingly. And of course, Coach, like you say, mentioned Indiana too. But I do like Oklahoma a little bit better than them. We talked about Notre Dame, Bama. That's just traditional stuff. None of these are really speaking to Coach right here. Tennessee, kinda, if they could find a way to sneak in, maybe. But I'm not, it doesn't do that much, right? So Coach thinks our best shots are Oklahoma and Indiana. It's hard to get behind anybody else, although my third team's definitely going to be the Eagles of North Texas. Now, let's see, do we have anything else to talk about right now? I know we do, but we'll leave it there. Let Coach know your thoughts about the Clippers versus the Nuggets. Who you think would be better for it right now versus the future. It definitely feels like it could be in it for the Sixers to finally get over the hump and get to the finals. Let me know if there's anything Coach missed that happened big in college football this week as well. Coach